Hey, what's up, everyone? All right, so I've got these photos, the Pacific Wrens narrowed down. I did also have one of these chestnut-back chickadees, which I do like this shot. I think there's some potential here. So I think I'm just going to go through here real quick, mark off a few to edit, and then we'll go through that process. All right, so that one is definitely going to be one I want to pick. There's just a brown creeper I shot out there. So the goal with these obviously was to show off some of the habitat. So let's see, we got some similar habitat here. I definitely want to do one of these closer ones. So, and one of the farther ones, I think. So let's see, we got that one really shows off the forest, but that's a bit much distraction there. This one's fun, but I don't love the composition. There we go. And I already tweaked this one, so let me actually go ahead and reset that so you guys can see what it looked like straight out of camera. But yeah, I'd say that's going to be one I'm going to edit. You know what? I'm going to reject that one because the pose isn't as good. And that's fun and clean. So is that. You know, it's interesting too. I tried to compose with more of this visible there, but doesn't really make sense. It's kind of just busier, so it kind of works better like that. So maybe on that one. This one's kind of fun. Shows off the forest habitat as well. Oh, that one shows it better though. That one shows the redwoods better. Yep, we'll pick that one. And let's get a nice close-up one here. Ooh, that one's kind of, yeah. I think we're going to go with this one. All right, there we go. So we should have a handful of shots here. Let's filter out for just the flagged ones. All right, so first things first. I'm just going to run through each one in Lightroom here. Going to lighten up the exposure there, lift up the shadows, get a little bit more detail, drop those blacks. Color, like the white balance looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit warmer. Probably not much saturation. I like the lighter look of everything in the background here. I think I can crop this one into just a bit because there's just like a little bit of busyness down that bottom corner. I feel like there's a little bit of blue showing in there, so I'll just go down to the HSL and ditch that blue. Maybe not that much, but there we go. I kind of clean that up, and there's a little bit of yellow green. I'll clean that up later as well. I think that's it for the Lightroom edit. I think the rest I'll probably do in Photoshop. All right, on this one, just a minor crop. I want to get rid of that little bit of tree trunk on the left-hand side there. And then we're going to go dark with this whole thing. Like I overexposed this. I wanted this whole shot to be more moody like that. That's pretty good. Like see how lit up this is. And then the forest gets a little darker. I'm going to throw a linear gradient on the back, like the top half there in the background, darken that more, even drop those highlights. There we go. And then maybe let's chuck a radial right around here and then lift up the highlights on that, get those greens popping, show off the bird a little bit more. And then we'll do an object mask in here as well. I'm just going to try the box around it there, see if that grabs it. That did really good. So now we can lift up that exposure, get those highlights popping, and get that little guy standing out of the scene. I obviously, you saw, if you watched the shoot, I composed it right to get him in that dark space there because I knew I wanted to kind of edit this way. So there we go. That's looking good. A little bit more tweaks in Photoshop should finish it up. Same concept here. I'm just going to clone this out with the spot removal tool here in Lightroom. Just make sure the opacity is all the way up. There we go. And then just a tiny bit warmer, a little bit less magenta. I'm going to drop those blacks. I want to get that background nice and rich. Let's get those highlights up. We can pop the bird and the green. The green's getting a bit much there, so a linear on that. Drop that exposure. And then, I'm just trying to think. Maybe a linear on this side. Drop that exposure. Get that a little darker. And then one over here, kind of angled. Whoops. Not sure what happened there. There we go. Let's angle this one that way. And that should get us darker there. I don't need to go full black with the background, so one more radial on that spot. There we go. Just a little bit of detail back there is good. I mean, I could, in theory, like edit it to like really crush out the blacks, but to me, that's, I don't know. I do that sometimes, but in this one, it just feels like pushing it too far and unnecessary. I like seeing just a little bit of variation back there. All right, this one is definitely going to need that similar treatment as the one earlier, so we're going to go dark with everything. A little bit warmer, a little bit less magenta, get more of that deep green. You know, I'm going to go with the cool green on this one. So we'll leave some of those more cyan tones in there and then get it more green there. We'll lift up highlights a little bit, shadows up just a little, drop the blacks. I mean, that's a good start. So I want to get everything else around this darker. So a radial, feathered to the max, invert it, drop that exposure. Let's throw a linear on this half right there. And this is already kind of black in shade, so we'll just drop the exposure a little bit, drop the highlights and the whites. Now we're dimming out that forest back on that side. This section right here in the middle could probably use some of that as well. So I'm using a linear on that. We'll just drop the exposure. And then, I'm sorry, that was a radial. And then we'll just throw one more linear on this side and do the same thing. Drop the highlights and the whites, darken that down. I like how it's already naturally spotlit right there. And so let's do an object select. We'll do the same thing. Just put that box around that guy. Instead of painting him in, lift the exposure a little bit, highlights up a little bit, maybe warm him up just a little bit, get some more brown tones, maybe a little saturation. And there we go. Now that guy's sticking out. So look at that from before, after. And we'll maybe pop him a little bit more in Photoshop. All right, and then this last one, I'll get rid of that in Photoshop because it's so easy. A little bit warmer. Definitely less magenta. I know they're like a kind of, they have some magenta tones in them, but not that much. That thing was like, watch, he's like kind of purple there. So clean that up. And then big old radial, invert it, just drop the exposure, drop the highlights to tone down the mosses there. And then I'm going to do a subject select. And then just subtract with a linear off the bottom half of him here. So I can lighten up just the head there a little bit more. And we'll punch that up real nice. Maybe lift the highlights a little bit. Drop the blacks to maintain that contrast. A little bit warmer, a little bit less magenta. Done. So there's our before and after on that. All right, these are all looking pretty good. Let's take them into Photoshop to finish them up and make them look really good. All right, so I just selected them all and then chose Command-E, Edit in Photoshop. So hopefully they should open up momentarily. And here we go. Just a couple more to open up. All right, we'll kind of work our way backwards. So first things first, make a new blank layer. And then I'm going to use the lovely remove tool in here. Just make sure it's on sample all layers. And then we'll just go ahead and paint that out. Now, obviously there's a spider web kind of connecting to it there. A couple of choices, I would say. Oh, that didn't work perfectly. Let's try, I'm just painting over it a little bit more. It's leaving some weird smudges in there. I'm not liking that. So switching over to the clone tool, again, make sure it's on all layers, and then I'll fix that up myself. Just make it nice. So I'm just sampling above and then kind of working my way down. It is smoothing it out and getting rid of some of the noise, which I don't want to do. So I'll add that back in a second. So anyway, I could completely remove the spider web or add it back in, like just pretend like it just goes out and connects to something over there, which I think is what I'm going to do. So anyway, on images like this where you have some of that noise grain texture from a little bit of the higher ISO, when you clone like this, it smooths it out. I particularly don't like that. I think it just looks like you can see where you were like messing with the image kind of. And in fact, let me just go ahead and continue out this web, right? There we go. So what I do is because I'm on just the layer where I did the cloning, I'll just throw a marquee over that just to select that area. And then you just go up to Filter, Noise. And I know this is going to be hypocrisy for many of you watching this. I'm going to add noise. That's right. I'm going to add noise to the image instead of try to remove it. Yeah, so way too much. The important part here, it needs to be on Gaussian and monochromatic. We don't want to add color noise to it. And then Gaussian means it's like more of a random pattern. But check that out. Watch. Before, after. Here, I'll zoom in a little bit more. So here's before. You can see how I kind of smoothed out a lot of those areas. Here's after. It fits right in now, and it matches the noise pattern of the image, and it doesn't look like I messed with it. Now, many of you probably would just do a noise reduction on the whole background, but honestly, this does not bother me even a little bit. Like this grain right there, I'm not seeing it in the full image. We're also zooming in on a 16-inch laptop screen right here. In the end, how is this going to be viewed is on a much smaller screen and a much lower resolution version that's going to get rid of a lot of that noise anyway. So I'm not going to mess with it. I just don't mess with noise reduction software really at all, unless it's really, really bad. And even then, I usually just use Lightroom. So anyway, there we go. That's all I needed to do in there. Let's do a little bit of dodging and burning. So I do that by using a curves adjustment layer. So you can get that right here. We're going to do a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to drop the highlights there, drop the mid-tones a bit. And then this is on a mask, so we'll go ahead and invert that layer mask. I'm going to grab the paintbrush, paint with a big soft brush, paint with white, 100% opacity, except I'm using my graphics tablet, my Wacom tablet, to control the opacity. So I'm actually pushing pretty light right now, probably getting somewhere in the neighborhood of a 10 to 20% opacity brush stroke on that. So that's just going to even out and darken down that sort of hot spot that was happening up there. And I'm going to just try and richen up a little bit more of this moss here. So I'm going to paint a little bit on that to kind of darken that down just along the bottom edge there, and maybe a little bit across this sort of top edge there, something like that. Okay. Now, I use dodge and burn a lot with the curves layer. So I've created actions for them and assigned shortcuts on the keyboard. So if I want to dodge something, I'm going to press Command F2 and I get a dodge layer with this already, the curve already applied in it, and it's called dodge. The layer mask is automatically filled with black and it's just ready for me to paint in. And so what I'm going to do with this one is just give a little pop to the catch light. It doesn't need much. It's already a good catch light. And maybe that's about it actually. And then I'm going to give the contrast to just the bird. So I did another shortcut that gives me a contrast adjustment layer, and I painted it in just on the bird. So here's my final before, after. Very subtle, didn't need to do a lot. Let's close that and save it, move on to the next one. All right, so we got this chickadee, this cute little chestnut back chickadee here, right? So let's see, I'm thinking about removing this one behind him there. It's gonna be a pain. Let's go for it real quick. Retouch layer. Let's try the remove tool. Let's grab that and see what it's going to do. It did not do great on that last image. This tool usually nails it too, so I'm usually really happy to use it. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty damn good right there. This one sort of fades out, so I'm just going to leave it over there. We're just going to try and fix it right around here. And so you see I'm not touching the bird yet, but in a second I'm going to try. So we'll go right there and touch the bird. There we go. That worked really nicely. Let's try and just get rid of that one piece there. The edge of the bird still works for me. And then we'll try and get rid of that. I mean, it messed it up a little bit, but not bad. The only thing left is under here. That feels like it's going to be tougher. So I'm just going to use the regular clone stamp tool and just give me a little bit more control over getting rid of just those weird sort of smudgy kind of out of focus areas. I love what it did along the back there. It kind of left the feather pattern. So it did really good. So there we go. That distraction's out now. Check it out. Much cleaner around the bird. A little bit of a dark smudge there. So again, I'll use the clone stamp tool to kind of clean that up. All right. All of this, yeah, I'm not worried about it. This is the only one maybe. You know, I'm going to try the remove tool here and just take it out to right about there because it feels like a natural ending. And let's see if we can get it a little bit more natural. Yeah, that works. Just because it was kind of coming in close. Now it feels like more of a nice shape framing in there. So there we go. I wish it was all green, sure, but the dead and the green, yeah, it doesn't bother me that much. And I think I want everything else kind of washed out. So just like before, I'm going to use that curves adjustment layer, and I'm going to paint a little bit of that up and around here. We're just going to lighten up everything, including the bird a little bit. That's fine. And we're just going to go with a nice, light, kind of washed out look with this. The bird is going to end up being the star of that show. All right, so he got a little washed out on the cap there. So another curves adjustment layer. We're going to drop those blacks, get them nice and rich. Small paintbrush here. Again, we're painting with white, and we'll paint that in along that edge there. Just keep these dark areas nice and dark the way they should be. I kind of want more contrast on him there, so I'm going to do another curves adjustment layer. And this time I'm just going to drop the black point, invert that, so Command-I on the Mac to invert it, and then we'll paint that in along the top. I'm zoomed way in here, so that's why we're seeing a ton of grain there. Next thing, I'm going to do a dodge layer, and we'll go in and hit that catch light, right? Just kind of brighten that up, and maybe even just a little bit along the eye ring there, just to make that eye stand out nicely. Color's looking good. A little bit of green showing in, yellowy green under there. Super easy fix. An adjustment layer right here, hue and saturation. We're just going to drop the yellow saturation. So we go to the yellow channel, drop that saturation. Look at that, cleaned it right up. So we're going to invert that so it's not affecting anything. Back to our paintbrush, paint with white. This time you can probably hit it with about 100% of that effect and just paint that right on out of there. There might be a little bit of green in there as well, so we'll go to the green channel, kind of desaturate that, and that's looking really nice and clean and neutral. Now I don't have any of those weird tones kind of showing up. So we go from there to there. Much better contrast on the bird's head overall. I think I went a little dark, like right in the middle here. So let's see which one's doing that. Feels like it's maybe that one, or that's the one right there probably. So we'll just back off of that, which means we go back to this layer mask, back to our paintbrush, paint with black this time. It's going to remove some of that effect, and we can soften that there. And now we'll see a before and after. Much better. Looking good. It's still a little busy on that image, I know, but that's okay. All right, retouch layer, just a blank layer. I just have a shortcut to make it, it creates that layer and calls it retouch. Let's grab our remove tool. Just a couple little things sticking out here that are kind of annoying to me. That one, and then obviously this one is a bit distracting. So we'll just kind of remove that. And Photoshop did a splendid job. This one back here, very minor distraction. I'm just going to use the clone stamp tool on this to just kind of soften it up. And there we go. All my distractions are gone, looking good. The only thing left to do, what in the heck? I think a bird just like dropped in out of the window here. It's like a raven or something. I don't know. I just saw something drop on, like flying around. It's windy out there, so maybe it's just stuff blowing around. Couldn't tell if it was junk or a bird. Anyway, I'm sitting in a van at, where are we, Emily?
Petrified Forest.
Oh yeah, Petrified Forest National Park in Arizona. It's a beautiful day out, but it's really windy. Sorry guys, back to the photo. I just got distracted there. Let's do some dodging. So dodge layer, we'll get that brush. I don't have to worry really about hitting the black background behind it too much. It's not going to affect it too much. Here's what I don't want to do on this one. I don't want to lighten the whole bird. It's obvious overhead lighting. You can see it from the lighting on the bird and the lighting on this perch. And so I want to maintain that. So I'm basically just looking to lighten the head there a little bit. I did lighten this a little bit, and actually I think I went too far. But I can lighten the body just a little like that. Watch. Before, after. Just subtle there. But I don't want to lighten that body as much. And in fact, I'm going to get rid of it again because I'm really not happy with it. I think it just needs to be just like the head there. Yeah. I like the underside of the body being darker there. Maybe a little bit of burn now. So again, I'm going to use my shortcut, but it's just a curves adjustment layer with these points added to it. And then filled with black. And then when I paint with white, I can darken these areas, just burn them down. And so again, I'm trying to leave that overhead lighting kind of feeling to the whole thing, right? So there we go. So we go before, after. And it does. It cleans it up a little bit. It dims down some of the mossy perch, and it just pops the head of that bird. That's all I need. Done. Save. Let's move on. This one's going to be super easy. Quick burn right here in that front corner. I mean, we'll throw a dodge in. I don't know that we need it. You know what? Let's do just a little bit right in here. And those darker parts of the head. The catch light's already pure white. And let's lighten up the beak a little bit. So we show that. And you know what? Maybe these fun little legs. We'll just get a little bit more visibility on them. There we go. Before, after. Right? Check it out. Before, after. Done. And then this last one. All right. I do find this one kind of bokeh ball of the sky coming through a little distracting. So on my retouch layer, just going to use the regular clone stamp tool. Just clone that right out, nice and easy. Let's see, anything else? This dead branch here I think can go, and I could clone it, but I think the remove tool is going to do a better job. So let's go ahead and grab that. And then this one dead stick right out the end there. We'll just grab that, and okay, little thing hanging there. All right. Now I'm finding everything, right? That dead thing there. Let's get this dead one here. And then we got this bright stuff right there. That one wasn't perfect, so I'm going to hit it again. Again, that's some cobwebs. That's all good. That wasn't perfect either. And there. Done. I swear, no more cloning. All right. It's a little light back here because remember in Lightroom I did a radial, so it wasn't a good selection. So now I'm going to use a burn layer to darken this down. We'll paint in underneath here. We'll paint in the underside of this. Maybe a little bit of that, but we'll leave the spotlight right where it is there. And then just, again, we're just trying to darken all of these light spots. So I'm just kind of hitting that tree again and a little bit of this side. I'll do some burning there. A little bit up top here where it's just a little bit brighter, and then a little bit right behind him, kind of overhead there. And then we'll come back in with a dodge layer. Nice small brush here. And we're just going to dodge and lighten the head and the upper portions. The tail is getting some of that light, the top of the tail, so we can hit that with it. And let's do the legs as well. Again, I'm not worried about being so specific here. It doesn't need to be like a perfect mask or anything like that. I'm just doing a very minor difference in color, or brightness, I should say. And so I don't think it needs to be like a perfect selection. So let's check it out. Before, after. See how it makes that bird stand out better? Nice, right? That's it. Let's close and save, and then we're done. So let's take a look at all of these from beginning to end. I'll show you the before and after on all of them. Once this saves, we'll go ahead and get out of Photoshop and head back to Lightroom. I'll reset all of the images, like the raw files. So let's grab all these raw images. We'll just go into develop here. They're set to auto sync, so if I hit reset on one, it resets all of them. And now we can see the before and after on each. So there you go. There's the before and after on each. Let's go through them. So there's after, before. Let's start the other way, right? We'll do before and after. Before, after. There's your before, after. Much better. Look at that. Definitely a dramatic edit for sure, but it's kind of the look I wanted to go for there. And I should have just started with a darker exposure. All right, so here's our before there, after. Not a huge difference there, but just definitely makes it cleaner and pop. This one's going to be a big difference again, because again, I overexpose. But there's your before, there's your after. Little guy standing out, really showing off that Redwood Forest. And then we got our before and our after, much cleaner, lighter. So that's it. Let's take a look at all these after images. There you go. That's a nice set of images from a quick morning outing in the Redwood Forest in Northern California. My first time photographing Pacific Wrens and chestnut-backed chickadee, which was really cool. I'm really happy with these images, especially because I got to show off the Redwood Forest habitat and get some nice close-up portraits of these birds. In hindsight now, I'd probably go back and tweak this one and add a little bit more of that brownish warmth, because I love the color of them here, but this one feels a little lacking. And so I think I'd try and bring this one closer to that. I'm not going to bother doing that now, but that's a change I would do right before I shared them. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys really enjoyed this one, and I'll see you on the next shoot.